Hello, Barn here. I'm gonna engage in a bit of conscious brand exploration. I do risk slipping into a conscious rant. I'm gonna try and avoid that. Let's see how this goes. So, I was sent today an email from Becky at New Leaf Life Design, and she sent me a link to a BBC News article, and the title goes something like, "Ban cartoon characters on unhealthy food, MPs say." And then there's a big picture of Tony the Tiger off the Frosties box. And it says under it, cartoon or fictional characters like Tony the Tiger should no longer be used to promote unhealthy food, a group of MPs say. The proposed ban would also mean that film and TV characters like superheroes could no longer appear on such foods. It also says characters like the Jolly Green Giant could still promote healthy foods. So, Becky's sent me this article because a couple of weeks ago, I gave a talk at a breakfast networking meeting, one of these breakfast networking gigs. And I gave a talk about conscious branding, and I used the medium of breakfast cereal boxes to try and make a point about how branding, in this case the packaging of the box, of the cereal, how it tells a story. But often the truth about what's in the box is a very different story. And the thing that's been remembered from the talk was the moment when I threw a box of Cocoa Pops across the room. We'd looked at the packaging, the monkey and all of that, and I then just briefly outlined how cocoa is actually produced and who it's produced by, and was demonstrating the misalignment between these two stories, how they couldn't be further apart. One of the other great examples that's been picked up in this article, of course, is I talked about cornflakes, and I talked about how the packaging on cornflakes packets often show like sort of golden fields of corn. That creates a kind of an emotional response for the British public. We all get our rose-tinted glasses out. And of course, cornflakes, and indeed Frosties for that matter, it's made of sweet corn, maize. And sweet corn, of course, it's just squashed and baked, basically. Now, if you put sweet corn on the box, no one buys into that in the same way. The idea of a bowl of sweet corn isn't really very appetizing, is it? So, instead, they show us fields full of wheat or barley, sort of in the sunshine, and it says cornflakes. And of course, that's just not the reality. Fields of sweet corn are not golden. It's just another kind of interesting example of this telling a story here that looks like that, the reality over here. And it's interesting that they've picked up on the Jolly Green Giant, which of course is sweet corn, isn't it? That's, I think. So, that's okay, providing the sugar hasn't been added, then it's okay. Add the sugar, then fiction has to go out the window. So, it feels like a reasonable point and a reasonable article, and I can kind of understand where these MPs are coming from. And it would be absolutely true to say that the food industry, the corporate world, to make their product as moreish as possible, to make us buy as much as possible, they pump it all full of sugar because we like that. We enjoy eating it. It's sweet, and the sweeter it is, the more we seem to eat, and the more money, of course, they make. And that's, from a health point of view, not good for the consumer. From an economic point of view, I'm sure the companies would argue that it's excellent. Their role is to make profit and keep their shareholders happy, and that's what they're doing. So Yeah, the article says here, it says figures show that 1 in 25 children aged 10 or 11 in England are now classed as severely obese. So you can see that there is a significant problem, and I can really understand what the MPs are trying to do. It's also worth kind of noting, I mean, it's quite interesting that the obesity problem has come about actually as a result of fat being removed from the diet. When I was a kid, it was all about, the whole issue was getting fat out of the diet, and the government put a lot of effort into achieving that. Now, it turns out that the data they were working from had actually been supplied by the sugar industry, which is very interesting, isn't it? The sugar industry knew that if fat was taken out of the diet, then ultimately the body needs energy, and we would turn to sugar instead. So, you can see where the MPs are coming from. But whilst I hold that here, I also kind of want to hold the opposite. I find myself struggling with this idea that rules and regulations, more legislation, is the way to solve these problems. I mean, maybe it's part of a solution, but what's this going to look like? What's my breakfast table going to look like? Is everything going to just be packaged in grey? A nice grey box. Is this going to go in the same way as like the tobacco industry went? And we come down to the breakfast table and go, morning kids, and on the table there's this grey box with a picture of a overweight dead child on it, and it says, eat this and die. Where does all of this lead? And I struggle with the authoritarianism of the government. I have this desire to, because the problem that I was highlighting in the talk is that the companies, the food industry, are trying to sell us one particular story that's just not true. But what's also going on at the same time is the government are trying to sell a particular story. And both parties are trying to be the author of the story. They're trying to be our authority. The company's trying to control what we consume, so they get rich. The government trying to control what we consume, because otherwise they'll get voted out. And I find myself defending Tony the Tiger, almost. Because it's like, if you've got kids, you will know what I'm talking about here. In the morning, you need to get up, focus attention, get dressed, get some food in, get them off to school. Then you've got to get to work. And there's all the, the school run and sitting in traffic and all of that. And it's like, we also need to get food in our kids. I mean, I remember recently there's been a whole thing about kids going to school having not had breakfast and the impact on that on their education. And, there's a whole ding-dong about that. And so you've got this, here we are going, oh, it's terrible what these companies do. But what they're actually doing is sugarcoating sweet corn in order that we can get it into our kids. So under that sugar, at least there's something reasonably healthy going in, so that they can, not be sitting in their desk unable to concentrate. So there you go. And I kind of feel like is it the sugar that's actually the problem, or is it the fact that the kid is then made to sit still for the next 7 hours? Anyone who's ever been a child will know the one thing that kids don't do well, they're not very good at it, is sitting still. It's the most unnatural thing in the world for a child to sit still. So is the fault in the sugar itself? I mean, clearly it is to some extent, but or is it the culture in which the child then has to engage the moment they've consumed that sugar? And all this business of stress in the morning, trying to get everyone out the door, this is the result of our culture that we've created, that the government enforce. As a parent, I've kind of discovered this whole thing that the kids have to go to school. The kid's not allowed to ever bunk off. I'm not allowed to take them out for a day. That might terribly damage their education. If the kids, off school for too long, you get fined. If you don't pay the fine, you go to prison. People have actually, that's actually happened. What sort of government would seriously consider that? That's mad. That's completely mad. So I don't like this sort of nanny state thing that goes on, as if rules and regulations are the only way to solve a problem. The whole system, it feels like it's kind of mad. It's like all the sitting in traffic and even the employment situation is much like the kids going to school. It's much of the same thing, isn't it? We're all working crazy long hours. Why aren't we eating food that hasn't been processed by businesses? Why are we eating all this ready-made food? Because no one's got time to kind of cook, having done a long day at work, having sat in traffic to get home. That's part of the culture that we've created. So I kind of feel that if the government was serious, rather than looking at like the trying to address the symptoms of obesity, we would look deeper. We would look at the real reasons why so many people are so massively overweight. Because what you're seeing there is a physical expression of a disconnected society. We've become so disconnected, even from our own bodies, that we just stop caring about what we put into them. And if I'm overweight, I'm overweight. It's not my problem. And it feels like this is the result, again, it's the result of our culture. When I look at our leaders, what I see is just a complete lack of vision. It's like, where are we going? Where are you taking us? No one seems to have any vision about that at all. What's required is for us to turn the handle, get in the traffic, go to work, earn the money, consume. The government want us to consume as many Frosties as possible. It's keeping the whole economy going. So, it's really interesting, isn't it, that it seems clear that the culture we've created doesn't serve us. We know that this whole system, it kind of destroys the soul. You look at people, you look at kids in the education system, and it feels like it's designed to destroy them. You look at the work environment. We've got a mental health epidemic going on. And it's a result of a system that doesn't serve us. When we look at the environmental impact of the mythology that more is better, we've destroyed our home. So, if the government was serious, we would start actually looking deeper and getting real about some of this stuff and start trying to address some of these bigger issues. And the irony of all of this is like the reason there's no vision is because there's no creativity. And when we look at the school system, it's clear that the system's kind of designed to destroy creativity. The reason kids can't sit still is because they're so busy being creative. It's like, well, we could do this or that or the other. And the whole system of sitting them in a chair crushes that. I've got another article here on my screen from 6 months ago, another BBC News page, and it says creative subjects being squeezed, schools tell the BBC. Creative arts subjects being cut back in many secondary schools in England, a BBC survey suggests. Of all the schools surveyed, 9 in every 10 said they had cut back on lesson time, staff or facilities in at least one creative arts subject. No wonder nobody's got any vision. The whole system is constantly squeezing it out. They're squeezing out the creativity. So, this is where we need to become more conscious. This whole conscious branding thing that I'm exploring. This is what it's about. It's an invitation to step out of the culture that has conditioned you, the culture that tells you who you are and what you'll do and how you'll be and what you'll eat and what time you'll get up in the morning and whether or not your kids can take a day off or not, etc., etc. And it's an invitation to come back to life. It's an invitation to explore purpose, to create vision, to engage in the world creatively, to bring in something new, to change the polis. Because this kind of story that we're presented with that says this thing that's happening now, whatever this is, this has no purpose. We're just clever monkeys clinging to a rock, hurtling through an infinite universe with absolutely no purpose whatsoever. No wonder it's like, I'll just eat some more chocolate then. Who cares if it's all pointless? What conscious branding does is it takes us on a trip where we start to discover the real deep meaning or purpose beneath this trip of life, and to engage in life in the most creative and courageous way we can, to become the best version of ourselves, the most loving version of ourselves. And if we can bring that loving creatively, then the realm of the food industry, who, to create numbers on a spreadsheet are happy to pump things full of sugar, screw the kids. Their health problems are their health problems, not our health problems. That would be resolved naturally. The government and all their desire to be the author of our story, to tell us how it's going to be, forgetting their job is to serve, that would naturally fizzle away, because actually, as individuals and therefore also as a collective, what we would be doing is looking to how do we bring love into the system. What would the vision then become? And this is, of course, where the conscious branding trip takes us. And it takes us on this trip through the medium of branding, which is, of course, relevant to all businesses, political parties, and so on and so forth. It's a great medium. So I hope that you might want to come with me on some more brand exploration, conscious brand exploration, where I might be able to share a little more of some big ideas with you and point to a vision for humanity, for our planet, for our species that is beautiful. And I hope to be able to put some more videos together through which we can do that. So until then, bye-bye.